But I figured I'd bring in an expert. My friend Bob Bianchi, former Morris County prosecutor and now defense attorney, is here. Morning, Bob. How are you?
How you doing, Bill?
So, Bob, my head almost exploded when I heard this. We've gotten to a point now that it's beyond absurd. Like, there's no more common sense any longer, right? So the idea in Denville is, I don't know what they were afraid of. I don't know what symbol they were afraid was going to be put. Like, if someone's going to come up and want to plant a swastika on the, like, I didn't know what they meant. But the idea that it is Christmas time, we're on day 3 of the Hanukkah celebration, the idea that you couldn't have a menorah or a nativity scene is absurd. Now, you're a lawyer, but you and I were talking off air, and we've talked about this a little bit on Chasing News as well. It seems to me the First Amendment does not deny religion, does not remove religion. The First Amendment, in its intention and truly in its words, say that government will not establish a religion. This was a direct pushback against the British Empire, against England, saying, look, we're not going to have a state religion in America.
Right. I think this is something that gets confused a lot in the public eye, Bill, that they have to understand that the Bill of Rights, that is the First Amendment that we're talking about right now, and all the other amendments were meant for government action that's being imposed upon a civilian population. And at the founding fathers, you have to go back to the history of it. They were very religious. They came over here for religious freedom. They just didn't want to establish a state religion, as you just indicated. But they didn't mean this to be a religious-free society. Right. That was not the intention. God has mentioned numerous times in the founding fathers' documents, the Constitution, on our money.
Right, it's on the money.
Yeah, so I mean, we've gotten to a point. And listen, I understand it's a controversial issue. I'm a faith-based person. I think that we need more religion. Of course, not the establishment of a religion, and I don't care what religion that is. If you're so inclined to believe in a higher power, there's no reason why towns like Denville can't put things up to at least celebrate, whether it's whatever religion, celebrate that so that it's part of a communal idea of a higher power.
Right. I mean, we talk about where you have a high population of Indian Americans coming here from, the whole from Asia. You've got Diwali, big celebration. You've now got a lot of the school systems that even take off for it.
Right.
Who would have an issue if the town hall said, hey, we're going to recognize our high concentration of Indians who have come here from India and celebrate these holidays? Here's a symbol.
Yeah.
And if you're talking, like, to me, the common sense is we are afraid of any discussion of religion because somehow, I don't know when it happened, it got twisted that a conversation of religion is somehow excluding everyone else and discriminatory.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the boogeyman. So if you talk about religion in some sense, I agree with you. If you have a community and a population that has a certain religion, even if it's different than yours, let's honor that. Let's celebrate that. Right. Because let's be honest, Bill, there's very few cultures, and as a prosecutor, we did a lot of community affairs outreach. There's very few cultures that are religionless cultures. Religion formulates a major part of what that particular culture is. And instead of running away from that, we should incorporate it, embrace it, and honor it, even if it's different from our own.
So I also want to get into a little politics. There was an issue at Fordham University. Jerry Burke, his daughter goes to Fordham, and coffee shop, a bunch of college Republicans wearing their Make America Great hats, and the barista threw them out, starts screaming at him about a safe space. And, there are a couple sides to this. Other than this whole idea of snowflakes needing a safe space, and I don't mean that as an indictment on all millennials. I think it's a very small portion of millennials. I don't really know any snowflakes, to be quite honest. I work with millennials, as you know, across these jobs, and they're a bunch of tough kids that are out there working for a living. So I haven't met a lot, but again, I'm not on a college campus these days either. So, but I want to get your opinion on that. This happened in New York, but so many Jersey kids go to places like Fordham, Columbia, etc. I think the safe space idea, I'd love to talk about the legal precedent for that. Let's talk about this. This whole safe space idea, I mean, legally speaking, I think it's a deeper question. Fordham University, private, but how much money are they getting from the government in terms of tuition subsidies? Who knows what grants they get, education grants, etc. It seems to me that if you can't wear a political hat, making America great hat, this is the slogan, right?
Right.
On a hat, if you can't wear that in a coffee shop without fear of being thrown out, something's wrong.
Okay, so we have to look at these issues because they're hot button issues, the difference between a legal issue versus a political issue and the way our country has become. What has disturbed me, and you will never find me wearing Make America Great
You're
Again
not a big
hat.
Trump fan. You know, I have a Make America Great ornament on the tree.
Oh, that's awesome, and I respect your right
Do you know why?
to have one.
Do you know where it hangs?
Where's that?
Next to my Democratic donkey.
Oh, there you go.
Because my wife Jody, her grandmother, huge Democrat, couldn't believe that there was a Republican in the family when I came along, and so one Christmas she got me that ornament. So she passed away a while ago, and we always hang it on the tree. So my son, he's like, Dad, tree needs a little balance. So I bought a Make America Great ornament. So they hang together.
Well, I always knew that you were in touch with your Democratic side, so
of course,
that's
come
good
on.
to hear.
Come on.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, if the political piece to this is that I'm worried about the idea, even though I may not like what that represents, that we are getting into a place on these universities where if you don't particularly like the viewpoint of another person, then the answer is either to throw that person out, throw that speaker out. When I went to college, I went to a Dominican Catholic college. Yeah. We actually allowed Jesuits to come on campus, and actually the liberal Jesuits to come on there. We didn't throw them out. Right. We didn't stone them. We didn't break windows. We didn't have riots. We just respectfully agreed to disagree with certain principles. And it seems like in a university where ideas, and whether you agree with them or not, are supposed to be addressed, debated, and professionally resolved, has gotten to the point with, no, we're eliminating the idea, we're eliminating the people, we're eliminating it. And I think that is a censure that is really getting problematic in this country.
How has the First Amendment been distorted over time, though? You think about the idea of free speech. I should be allowed to walk down a public sidewalk and say what I want. I should be able to be at a restaurant and have any conversation I want. By this idea, if a waitress or waiter heard a conversation they didn't like in a restaurant and went to the manager and said, I'm offended by this conversation, throw them out, short of that group being a protected class, based on this, they could be thrown out of the restaurant.
Well, we're dealing with
crazy.
A culture of grievance, a culture of offense, everything that if you don't agree with what the other person agrees with, then you believe you have the right, and I want to talk about that, the legal right to be able to exclude it, and you don't. The Constitution's Bill of Rights, that is the protection of the First Amendment, right, we're talking about again, deals with government action that limits that, not private action, so long as a private individual, you're not discriminating against a protected class. And those protected classes are very clear in the law, like race, national origin, sexual orientation.
So it sounds to me something needs to be done, because if you could not have a conversation about Donald Trump in a coffee shop without fear of being thrown out of the coffee shop, and there's nothing the law could do to protect that individual for that, then we don't have a right to political free speech.
Well, you don't have a right to political free speech with private people. Private institutions can say, get out, because they're not a government entity, unless they're accepting federal funds, in which case they may not be able to do that. We don't know that in this particular case.
Well, I can't imagine that a major university is not, there absolutely is some government tie-in. There's no question about it. Maybe the coffee shop in particular is not. But if they're allowed on campus...
Well,
right?
you know the big brother problem with the federal government. If the federal government gives you highway money, if the federal government gives you grants, there are a lot of conditions that are usually attached to it. So we don't know in this particular case whether or not legally it was allowed or not, because if it was a government entity or a violation of the law, they have a right to freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly. Then if they are connected, they can't do that.
Now, Bob, in fairness, you didn't know about this story, right? Until I told you.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if a bunch of kids walked in wearing an Obama hat and the barista said, get out? Right. It would be national news right now. It would be national news. Listen, the hypocrisy is despicable in this country.
I'm calling it down
right
the line. Yeah. If it's not good for one side or not right, it's not right for the other side. That's just my opinion. So I believe that you should have a right to have your Obama hat on, and I believe you should have your right to have your Making America Great.
But you agree it'd be a different story if they threw out an Obama supporter.
Now you're back into a political issue. Do I think it would be different? Yeah, it probably would.
Probably would have been, right? Yep. Bob, always good to see you. Thanks for coming in. We'll see you on Chasing News tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for your insight. And next week, next week, the week after, I want to have you back. I want to talk about immigration, because immigration policy is going to be a huge thing, not only from the federal perspective, but then how our new governor is going to deal with it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks,
Bob.